Hi, I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thanks for joining us today. Our topic today is restaurant store closings. And from time to time, neighborhoods change, corporate initiatives change, markets change, and restaurants simply need to be closed.
I've had the honor to open over 100, or right at 190 restaurants where I participated. And unfortunately, I've had to close right at 130 restaurants. And the one thing that I learned, especially on closings, is you must have a detailed checklist. And it's not something you just throw in your briefcase and take with you. It's something you have to participate in regularly every day, making sure everything is moving well, because it's a short time for that closing, and there is a huge amount that's on that checklist.
That checklist that Don's referring to is on our website at theronanddonshow.com. So please take a look at that as well. There's way more on that checklist than we can talk about today, and it's a very useful tool to any facility manager.
Our checklist will start off with what we'll show on the screen at this point. A lot of the stakeholders within the corporation. Now, the first stakeholder in the corporation would be the real estate department. Then the legal department, the purchasing department, and that's a huge stakeholder that you're going to have a lot of dealings with. The MIS technical side, finance, security, human resources, or whatever particular name it goes by in your organization, transportation, if you have a transportation department, otherwise you may be dealing with purchasing on that, operations, and facilities.
So what Don's identified are the various stakeholders that are involved or potentially involved in the closing process. I think it's important to note that even though there's a number of stakeholders, each with their own degree of authority, ultimately it's the facilities manager that has the responsibility for the entire project.
I'll give you an example of what we're talking about, primarily having to do with the purchasing department. The stopping various services. For example, the linen company will need to come in and remove all of their linen, and getting them in sometimes is difficult. CO2 or beverage gas, balloon gas, they've got to remove those tanks. They're dangerous. They've got to be taken out of there. Vendors who own dish machine need to come in, but they have to come in after you've run all the smallwares and dishes through the machine. Otherwise, you're going to be washing them all by hands. Cable and satellite services need to remove their non-owned equipment. Phone and internet companies, they have things in there they have to shut down. The music box may have to go back to the music company that you use for your ambient music. Beverage companies will have to remove non-owned carbonators, towers, maybe like an Island Oasis machine, or possibly beer taps. So there's a whole bunch of things that are not our responsibility, but are in fact our responsibility to make sure they get done.
Well, as promised, there's a lot of information coming because a store closing is not a simple process. And again, we remind you that if you go to theronanddonshow.com, there's a tab that will have a complete and very thorough checklist for a restaurant store closing.
We're going to skip over all the other responsible parties, stakeholders in the company, and you can list that, you can read all that on that website. We're going to run right down to the operational, because you're going to be working most closely with them. They're going to be there for obviously the meetings and the closing of the business, but they need to retain a bunch of staff to clean the restaurant, to help package up all the food and dry goods and smallwares and liquor and other items like that that may be transferred to another restaurant. And then there has to be some of your host staff that will make sure that all the reservations that have been made have been canceled, and that any guest-owned items, for example, in one of my chains we had huge wine lockers that had all kinds of guest wine and beverages in it, that gets back to those particular guests before we leave the building. The facilities activities are a little more involved. On the screen again, I'm going to show you the list that you'll also find on the website. The facilities manager is going to need to purchase and bring in a lot of boxes and packing materials and tape. I've used well over 100 boxes in a normal closing because of all that food that has to be put into boxes, all the dry goods that have to be put in boxes moved off. And then if you're going to be moving small wares or other items from the artifact package, you're going to need a lot of boxes. I've spent tons of money getting that ready. You need to have the signs, decals removed from the store, and everything made safe. And if you have a landlord, they're going to make you refinish those surfaces to make them like they never existed. You've got store fixtures that you have to figure out what you're going to do with. Are they going to stay? Are they not going to stay? Are you going to pack them up and ship them? You have internal signages for, like in malls, or directional signs or placards that you need to remove. Non-owned equipment, as I mentioned, has to be taken care of and gotten out of the restaurant by whoever owns the equipment. Contracted services, you're going to have to set up to assist you. Let's say you have to crate up some of the equipment or artifacts or furniture and send it to another restaurant. Or you have to dismantle something that is a image item and it takes a contractor to remove it. The landlord may have specific requirements of repairs that have to be made. And then there is just a huge amount of product that has to be relocated or disposed of, and you may be involved with having to set up transportation for that and people on the opposite end to receive it.
So in addition to everything Don's described, there are also a number of critical, we'll call them business documents, that need to be addressed as well. So take a look at this list. Under the category of business documents, you may have something like liquor licenses. Just about all restaurants have that. There are various business licenses, food handler licenses, health permits, fire and assembly permits, cabaret license, entertainment permits, wastewater permits, and a number of other possible permits and licenses.
You're going to have a number of vendors and contracts that are ongoing that need to be resolved and closed out. They would include HVAC and refrigeration PM contracts, janitorial, carpet cleaning, window cleaning. You may have some hot equipment or other equipment PMs that are involved, sewer line jetting, grease trap, and by the way, you're going to need to empty the grease trap after you close. Hood cleaning, and you're going to have to clean the hood after you close. All landlords are going to require that. Beer systems will have to be cleaned and or serviced. Landscaping contract will have to be canceled. Snowplow agreement will have to be canceled. Pressure washing agreements, again, canceled. Pest control, water softener supplies that you may have set up under contract will have to be stopped. Knife sharpening contract. If you happen to have an elevator service agreement, that'll have to be canceled. And there may be a whole host of other ones.
In addition to all of that, in case you didn't already have enough on your plate, you also have the disposition of the various utilities. You got your gas, your electric, your water, and others. And the concern for those is every one of them is unique in how you're going to deal with it. If you're dealing with what will soon be a gray building in a northern environment, you probably need to leave the gas and the electric on so that you can continue to keep some level of heat inside the building. So every situation is going to vary, but certainly on that checklist that you're using, again, the ronandonshow.com, is a list of all the utilities so that you can figure out specifically what you're going to do for each of them.
Then, you're going to get closer to closing out the process by shutting off the gas valve leading to every single piece of equipment that you're not going to want to have running. You're going to shut off breakers to all that equipment. You're going to shut off water to everywhere you can in the restaurant, and in fact, probably out at the meter. You need to prop open the doors of all the equipment, prop open the doors throughout the restaurant, and just take some tape and tape the keys to the safe and write the combination, piece of paper that's taped to the safe. Try and, the combination codes, or the codes rather for your security system, you're going to want to leave that with somebody, and photo document in detail what the place looks like when you're getting ready to turn it over to the landlord. You're going to walk through the space with the landlord, get them to sign a release, hand them the keys, wipe your brow, go home, and rest.
Not an easy process. Store closings can be very complicated. I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe.